Hey, welcome back to the podcast, Evil Dungeon Master Universe Podcast. I am your host, Evil Dungeon Master Vince, and we're back for another episode of our podcast. I was looking through the books again today for another interesting item or magic item or anything in the book that would actually spark some little interesting conversation here for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. As we're continuing along with our Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, because that's what people are listening to and that's what people like to hear about. Ask the DM at theevildm.com is my email address where you can contact me and suggest anything you'd like to talk about. It doesn't have to be Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or Dungeons and Dragons at all. It can be any game you wish to talk about. I don't really care. Topics are topics and emails are emails, so why not? Don't forget you can head over to my website address, theevildm.com, and you can subscribe there. And support me by going to ko-fi.com or buymeacoffee.com if you want to just make small donations. And you can do that. Or you can support me on YouTube for 99 cents a month. Or you can support Spotify for, I think it's $1 a month as well, depending on where you want to support me. Any place is appreciated. So let's get on to now the commercial is over. Let's get on to the topic of today's podcast. All right. Turning to page 73-74 in the Player's Handbook, the original cover here I'm looking at right now in my hands, we have Leomund's Tiny Hut, a classic spell that no magic user should go without having. It's a pretty good spell, in fact, especially if you're in warm, hot climates and even cold climates. And when I say hot, it will lower the temperature for you. And in cold, it'll make the temperature warmer for you. So, it's a level 3 spell. The range is 0 because it's basically focused on the magic user himself. It is 6 turns per level, so it lasts about an hour per level. It's a 10-foot diameter sphere. Verbal, somatic, and material. Casting time is 3 segments, but that doesn't really matter unless you're in some type of combat or something. There's no saving throw needed because it's just a opaque shelter type thing. Side note, there was actually a representation. WizKids, I believe it is, made a representation of this. And it looks like a bowl, pretty much, a clear bowl. But it's perfect. It's only a couple bucks. You can get it in aftermarket. They made it a couple years ago, maybe more than that. And it looks like a bowl from the 70s or something with that weird coloring, opaque coloring, and like the glassware or something. And you could put it right over your minifigures on the table, your minis, and it'll look like you have a little hut going there. So it reminds the players of, it's a visual representation. You don't have to do it. But those that collect minis, it's a perfect thing to have. Go ahead and look it up. You can get it in aftermarket. A couple bucks. I think I saw it for $3, but whatever. So, when this spell is cast, the magic user causes an opaque sphere of force to come into being around his or her person. Half of the spear protecting above the ground or floor surface. The lower hemisphere passing through the surface. So it's kind of like a giant little ball you're in, but it's underground. This field causes the interior of the spear to maintain its 70 degrees Fahrenheit temperature in cold to 0 degree temperature, and heat up to 105 Fahrenheit. Cold below 0 lowers inside temperature to a 1 degree for 1 degree basis. Heat above 105 degrees raises the inside temperature likewise. The tiny hut will withstand winds up to 50 miles per hour without being harmed, but winds force greater than that will destroy it. So it's basically has to be a massive amount of winds, not just a quick little blow you down, I'm the wolf, thing. The interior of the tiny hut is a hemisphere, and the spellcaster can illuminate it dimly upon command, or extinguish the light as desired. So if you want to be able to read in there, or kind of chill out in light in there if you need to do something. But the only problem with that is at night, it kind of cuts off what you're doing. It kind of cuts off what you're seeing outside of the actual sphere itself. Because you're sitting, just like if you're sitting inside, and looking out a window, it's really hard to see in the dark and really far distance because of the light you're in, regardless of what type of vision you have or special ability you have because of the light. Turn the light out, boom, you can see in the distance pretty easily. Note that although the force field is opaque from positions outside, it is transparent from within. In no way will the tiny hut provide protection from missiles, weapons, spells, and the like. Up to 6 other man-sized creatures can fit into the field with this creator, and these others can freely pass in and out of the tiny hut without harming it. But if the spellcaster removes himself from it, the spell will dissipate. The material component for the spell is a small crystal bead, which will shatter when the spell duration expires or the hut is otherwise dispelled. So, what we have here is some people were saying that you could use this tiny hut to kind of protect your magic user, but it really doesn't protect you for much. And it doesn't really say what happens if more than 6 man-sized creatures, other than the magic, so 7 people are in this. I would assume that if a 8th person stepped into the hut, they will not have the protections of the actual sphere itself and may dissipate the magic spell, like break it, kind of like breaking the glass. Or the DM can rule it that the creature steps in, he gets no effects from it whatsoever, everyone else is fine. It's kind of something that the GM has to decide when this spell's cast. So there's a couple things to think about. And some people were worrying, well, how do the people enter and leave? Because it's a hut. So they're thinking there has to be some type of door, but no, just leave the circle or the hemisphere and in and out. Everywhere's a door. A wandering monster can wander in from any part of it and come right in. It's not really coming in because there's nothing really in. I mean, so to speak, you're in a sphere inside this little area. I mean, it's an opaque thing that you could see, but I mean, probably a person wandering up upon it, it's going to wonder what the heck it is, especially if they don't know what magic is. A wandering monster is just going to walk right in, or at least stop cautiously and try to get in. So people can just walk right out of it. As long as the magic user doesn't leave, the hut stays there, and as long as the spell lasts per however many hours per level. So if he's a 5th, like a 10th level would be 10 hours that you can do that. So it really depends. Another thing I was thinking about is if this is perfect if you're in some bad weather or something like that, and the group wanted to scout out a place for a place to stay or a place for a shelter or something, and your magic user has the ability to have this spell for a couple hours. Boom, you can cast. The magic user stands in there with maybe the horses, protects the horses for a while your scout goes up and tries to scout an area to find for a better campground or something, or a better area to hide. That's perfect. The magic user's there. As long as the magic user doesn't leave the actual circle or sphere itself is fine. So it's a good spell, and I know there's a couple other Leomund's spells in this book, but I just wanted to focus on this one because it's one of the ones that I've constantly seen in campaigns, and sometimes things come up like the magic user wanting to vary the temperature himself inside this. So no, it doesn't allow you to. It automatically adjusts based on the temperature outside and makes the internal temperature comfortable. If it was outside was like negative 10 degrees, it would try to maintain the interior of 70 degrees if possible. Probably will sit around 60 because that's minus the 10 outside. And if it gets way too hot outside, it'll heat up to 105. While 105 is absolutely unbearable living in Texas, I know this. It's not as bad as if it would be 130 or 120. So at least it caps the temperature to what it would be and give you some relief, and maybe make it a mini oven as opposed to a giant oven outside. So it's an interesting spell, and yeah, the magic user can't regulate the temperature. Sorry. I mean, of course, you could do that in your game. So some things to talk about. It is a 3rd level magic user spell. It maintains its temperature, can stand winds up to 50 miles per hour without any damage. But once it hits that 51, then I don't know. No, I'm kidding. Provides shelter and warmth, making it possible, portable, safe little place for a magic user and his group. Magic user can still cast spells in here, which is kind of interesting. If he uses this and there's like a bad weather outside and maybe too cold or something that would interrupt his spell, he'd be in the middle of this hut, nice, warm, toasty, ready to go, casting his spell. It can protect your mounts and companions during harsh weather. Like I said, you bring the horses in there, and the magic user can sit with them. It's this man-sized creature. Horse is considered a man-sized creature. I mean, you can argue that all you want, but they are. The material component for this is a small crystal bead, which is pretty easily purchased in any general store or even if you don't have magic stores, general stores would have a crystal bead. And then we also have the Whiz Kids little thing that you can buy post market and enjoy. Tell me what you think about this spell. Do you use it in your campaigns? How many times do you see your players use it, or do you use it? What rulings do you have on this spell? I'd like to hear what you would say in the comments. Head over to Spotify to check out polls for previous podcasts, and head over to YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. We will talk to you next time. Keep original, keep it old school. Good night, and God bless everybody.